Who's in there?
Okay, so we'll just give it a few minutes and let people log in.
Yep. Where do you see how many people are on? And
To your top left hand, you will see live, a big red thing that says live. And next to that, you see a gray little box with an eye in it, which currently shows we have one viewer. Okay, we have 4 now.
oh, nice. No, I think it only shows that to you.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes so I can see people joining in.
Yep.
Right, so I think we're good to start. So,
Yep.
hello
Hi.
everyone, and welcome to yet another extremely interesting session on Dogspot. So, I'm Subhadra, and I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Shantanu today. So, just a quick bit about me. I am an urban wildlife rescuer in Bangalore, apart from which, I'm also an equestrian therapist. So, basically, a equine assisted therapist for special needs children. I work with horses and special needs kids, a very avid wildlifer, and also a canine behaviorist. So I would like to welcome Dr. Shantanu to our session today. Hello, doctor.
Hi. How's it going? So
Very
yeah.
well. I hope this
Uh,
finds you well, and we're really thrilled to have you on live here with us. So, doctor, do tell
yeah,
us a little
very
bit about
nice.
yourself.
So, well, I'm a vet, and I've been working here with wildlife now for 8 years now, and so I've been in. Now I'm based out of Bangalore now, but we were in Bandipur before, and in Pune and New Zealand for a while, and it's been an interesting several years. So yeah, and
Interesting must probably be the most. Yeah. Right. So, what made you get into the field of wildlife medicine to start with?
So I was in New Zealand before. I did my high school there, and then I was trying to get into vet school there for a really long time. But then that didn't happen, and afterwards I did a degree in marine biology, and found myself not wanting to dive in New Zealand because it was really cold, and so I'd always wanted to be a vet, but I was trying to figure out what to do. And then, so then I came back, I moved back to India. I did my veterinary medicine in Pondicherry and went back to New Zealand for a while, found that there was barely any wildlife to work with, and decided to move to India instead again and stay here for a while. And so after about 6 months in Pune, where I realized I didn't really like living in the city. I moved to Bandipur. I got myself a job with the Wildlife Trust of India, and I was there for 3.5 years. I think 3 years. And afterwards, we were in Mysore for a bit, where we have a small boarding kennel and a clinic, and then moved to Bangalore, where I now work with Reef Watch, which is an organization that works out of Kundapur. We work with sea turtles and whales and dolphins all across the coast of Karnataka. And yeah, that's
Oh, brilliant. So that last part of, you being associated with Reef Watch is extremely interesting to me. I being a diver myself. So that's lovely. So you primarily worked in Bandipur, is it?
Yeah, so the Wildlife Trust of India has these mobile veterinary services, these mobile vets that travel around forests and treat animals wherever required, and in several forests all across the country, mostly in the north. So this was one of the first projects in the south of India, and so I set up this thing for Bandipur, and we did dealt mostly with conflict mitigation. It was every time there was a cow, a sheep, a goat, or buffalo that was injured by a leopard or a tiger, we'd go and treat the animal. And if it was injured, take care of it. If it was dead, we would write the reports for the farmers to go and get compensation. We'd also work very closely with an organization called the Mariamma Charitable Trust that does a lot of work currently, that still does a lot of work with conflict areas, and they do cattle and cattle compensation for animals that are affected by for people that are have their cows and sheep and goats taken away by leopards or tigers in the night, and so what it does is it kind of reduces uh, reprisals against big cats, and I still help out with those cases very often, and yeah, that's,
So when you say, you worked on these kind of cases around Bandipur, I should imagine it would have been in the entire circuit of, the Bandipur, Nagarhole, Kabini, and those areas, is it?
yeah. It was mostly Bandipur, up all the way up to Kabini, but then there was once in a while I'd have to go to Nagarhole and things. But while I was with Bandipur, while I was with WTI, I ended up going to Bihar and Kaziranga for a while. And we ended up doing a lot of captive elephant cases as well, which is, and then after that, I helped out and I consult with an organization in Bangalore now, where we treat captive elephants, and we're looking at treating and making sure that welfare standards are followed even in temples, whether even if you can't get the elephants out of there into rescue centers or back into forests or forest camps, you can't really release them. But we make sure that even if they're in temples, they get the veterinary care they need, and it's what we're working towards now.
Oh, right. Right. So just tell us a little bit more about the man-animal conflict that you've had to deal with, not just here in Karnataka, but in different parts of the country.
So we've had so most of the cases that we've had to deal with were where people's animals were killed, or dogs, especially. Like a lot of dogs were taken by leopards a lot of the time. We've also had we'd get calls in from people whenever there was crop destruction, but then the forest department was always involved, so they used to handle those cases. But whenever it was a problem tiger or a problem leopard or something that strayed out of the forest and started killing livestock or people in several cases, then we'd come in and either capture the tiger or move it to the zoo, or try and treat it if it was possible in the wild and release. But unfortunately, because of the population that lives around Bandipur, it became very difficult to do the treatment and release. So we'd end up catching them and moving them to the rescue center in Mysore. And so we were involved in about 6 tiger captures, I think.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about these tiger captures. Were any of them man-eaters, or were they mostly cattle lifters?
Most of them were cattle lifters, but then we do get a few. We have had a few man eaters in Bandipur. I was involved with one of them, which ended up killing about 4 people, and that was not fun.
Wow.
It sounds really romantic
I
when
should
you hear
imagine.
about it, and
Yeah.
sounds
What
very
was the
romantic
name of
when you
this
think about it.
tiger?
This was
What was
a
the name of
tiger.
this tiger?
I don't remember the name per se. It had a number attached, but then it was in Hediala and Bandipur. and
Okay.
so we were called in.
Ah, all right.
It was a month long operation, and it involved a lot of it was a lot of it
Oh
was
my.
extremely hard because we got there at 5 in the morning and got back home at 7 in the night every single day for a month and a half, and it was we sorry, not seven. We get back to Mysore at 10 in the night every night. But it the thing is, every time we get a call, it was at the weirdest of times, and we'd have a. Initially, it just started with this tiger attacking and killing them and not eating them, but then
Mhm.
the tiger graduated to eating people pretty soon. And eventually, on the last day, we had this tiger had which had been attacked by another tiger. It had these really big wounds on its paw that were filled with maggots, and it had a bad infection. But what it had, and so it was preying on people who strayed into the forest or like along the buffer areas. And so the first day that we got there, at least, I remember when we walked in, the tiger was sitting in a bush, and it was sitting on this guy, and he was half eaten, and the floor was covered, the ground was covered in slippers because half the village had shown up, and they had been throwing slippers and shoes at the tiger, uh, hoping that he'd let go, but he
Oh my
refused.
God. Oh my
And
God.
we had about 2,000 people, 1,500 people all around, and we had to drive through that and to get this tiger. And unfortunately, with tigers, if you dart them and things, they will attack again, right? They go for whoever's there. And so there
Yeah.
was just so many people we couldn't dart it that day. And then it took us another. So this was the last few days of that operation was when we had to deal with this, and it took us another 4 days to capture him. It's just that he was around
Oh
in the
my
area,
God.
but we just could not find him. So despite us being on elephant back, and we had a team of about 100 people there, uh, and eventually, like on the final day,
Wow.
we decided we had to put out trap cages for him, and the forest department staff had there was a big group of them, the STPF, and they went out with the trap cage to put it there, and they had some meat that they were tying in the cage, and there was one of the guards, forest watchers, who was walking alongside, and he stood at this point where I had seen that the tiger had gone across the road, and we had seen it go into a bush at 9 in the morning, and then it had disappeared from there. And it turned out it was sitting right under that bush, and it went and grabbed the watcher by the head. And luckily, there was somebody with a gun standing right next to him, and so a lot of people shot, and we heard lots of bullets whizzing around. But then uh, one of the shooters, one of the guards in the thing who was carrying one of the guns, ran up to the tiger and shot it in the head. And we had to kill it because it would have killed the guard otherwise. And
Oh my gosh.
so that was not fun, but
I can't imagine it would be.
it's,
Wow.
when you
So, have
read
you
about
had experiences with the man-eaters only here in Bandipur or elsewhere as well?
uh, this was the only man-eater
Like
I've had to
anywhere in
deal with.
central India?
No, not so far. But then I know a lot of friends who've been involved in in the north and stuff.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
the problem with
Uh,
man-eaters and with tigers in general is not the tiger. It's always the thing is, whenever you go in for these situations, it's compounded by the number of people that are there. There are hundreds of people that are just waiting to see what's going on. It becomes like a tourist activity that people come to see what's going on, and they drink and they throw bottles around. And the thankfully, this tiger was not that bad when we were dealing with it, because the forest department had been doing a lot of work and outreach in that area. But the first day that we got there, there was a mob that came up and started beating everybody up. The only reason we didn't get beaten up was when, well, they came, I was being held by the throat, and then one of the guys who was there to whack us recognized me because I had treated his cow for a leopard bite. You know, So
Oh
it
my
became,
God, you were lucky.
but it became the thing is what we realized very soon after getting in there is that as soon as you start working with the locals and they realize that you're there to treat their animals and you're helping out, the conflict levels suddenly de-escalate. And with a lot of these cases, the most of the time they're only expressing their inability to get things done. There's a lot of political stuff that goes on, and people are promised a lot of stuff living in buffer zones, which they don't get by the local politicians or the district. The roads aren't good. They don't have access to healthcare. So then it's just really difficult. So they take it out on whoever they can that is in a position of authority, and unfortunately, the forest department I think is bears the brunt of that. But
Absolutely. I've just seen it happening too many times. So tell me, were you in Bandipur, about, I think, 3 years ago when we had the massive fires in Bandipur?
I wasn't there for the most recent one, but then I've been there for two fires. One in which one of the guards was killed. Uh, in fact, I was there. We were there for
Yeah,
the
that was
entire
the one
time.
3 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, was that 3 years
Hmm.
ago? Yeah.
So, I
So
mean, did you, see any spike in cattle lifters or anything like that around that time?
cattle lifters, no, I don't think so. It was a very localized fire, and when I was there, it was only in certain sections, and where it was not anywhere in the boundary areas. So it was it it was in it was in a it wasn't a very habited area, so the people who were there weren't
Okay,
really
okay,
affected by it. But we did see a lot of cattle
okay.
lifting in Coorg when we were there for the floods. But that's that's that
Oh,
happened.
okay. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's rather unheard of actually in the past. Yeah. Okay, so we have a question from Sharat Sharma here. What
Uh-huh.
percentage of time and resources of wildlife officials is spent on spreading awareness amongst the locals?
It is a large amount of time. So the most of the resources goes into building awareness, and by building awareness, it's not just about going there and making announcements and things. It's things like, well, their cattle compensation program or their crop loss program when people's fields are affected by elephants and things. Just by going out there and giving that money to people, it kind of de-escalates a lot of situations, and it creates a kind of bond between the villagers and the forest department, and it reduces the amount of crap they need to deal with whenever something goes really wrong. Yeah. So
Yeah, right.
and yeah, but then
Okay.
but now my work isn't like I don't deal with very much conflict anymore. We do have so I've shifted my after dealing with a lot of people dead and a lot of animals, like a lot of really crazy situations. I shifted away from that and I started working with captive elephants instead. And now this marine project. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But
So tell us a little bit more about your work with elephants. Really interested to know that.
I work with an organization here. I consult with an organization here called WRRC, and so they have a few elephants that they're taking care of that have moved. That one was a begging elephant that went through. Oh, that was in that picture was from Bandipur, which was my first case. It was a young. That was a young baby elephant that had been separated from the mum, and it was this was a really long time ago when. But what happened was it was separated from its mum, and we had tried to reunite the mum with her. So I don't think you can see it, but then I was covered in elephant dung because we were trying to get as close to the mom as possible. Like,
Okay.
and so I fed this baby, and it followed me everywhere I went. So we had kind of gone. So just to the left and to the right of the road were really big ditches on each side, and I had walked all the way around with one of the forest department officers to the point where the we had seen the mum cross the road and get into the forest. And when we got back out onto the road, it turned out she had come back out of the forest and was in the trench in that ditch. And thankfully, she was turned away from us. She didn't see us immediately. But I think when I saw her, my foot scuffed the ground and she charged us all the way up the road. Like you
Wow.
can't see it in the picture, but like about 100 meters away from here was where the office is. We ran all the way back there. And
Wow, I can well imagine. I've been chased on foot as well with elephants in Bandipur during the last elephant census, and it wasn't fun.
it's,
Yeah, it was
it's
quite
fun to
it was
talk
quite an
about years.
experience, and we were down in a valley. Yeah, we were down in a valley, and we were getting chased up a hill. So not a fun experience, I should imagine. Right. So tell me, doctor, what are the biggest challenges when dealing and working with elephants?
Um, it is the general public in a lot of cases. We so with this case, for example, with the baby elephant, we had got the mom had come out of the forest and she just about started interacting with the baby, and she was a first time mother, so she was a very young 17, 18-year old, maybe 20-year-old elephant, and she had been separated from her herd, so she was very stressed out and really uncomfortable. And there were people, but the forest department had formed a barricade on either side of that area so that people couldn't go through. And just around the time we were doing this, just after this picture was taken, we managed to get the mother and baby together, and the baby had gone to suckle. And usually once they suckle and latch on, it's kind of easy. Like then the mom usually accepts them and they walk away. And just then there was a guy who broke through the barriers on a motorcycle, completely drunk, and came up really close and honked and pressed his horn and screamed and shouted and yelled. And the
Oh
mother turned
gosh.
around and ran, and we could never find her after that. So we ended up with a baby elephant, and it was because it was just a day old. It didn't make it. It didn't survive
Oh
at
my
the end.
God, that's so sad.
But
Gosh.
the, the thing
Right.
is, it's just
That's really
hard.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, the thing is, dealing with people is the hardest part about working with wildlife. And
Yeah, I can identify very much with that. We rescue snakes here in Bangalore, and well, the job of trapping a snake and bagging it is, I would say, in most cases, all of a couple of minutes. But dealing with a crowd around and kind of sensitizing them to
yeah,
basically just keep quiet and stay away, I think is the
yeah,
biggest challenge. And I can just well imagine how it might be out there, being close to highways
yeah,
and people just not listening and not going by
yeah.
the rules. So tell me, doctor, with these elephants at WRRC, what is the plan forward for them? I mean, are they on a rehabilitation plan? Is there a plan to rehabilitate them back to the
One,
wild?
one of the elephants is a permanent resident. The other one is from a temple. I'm not sure about how long the elephant she's going to stay, and I'm not sure about that. I just go in and treat them.
Okay.
And this is Anisha. She was a begging elephant in from somewhere in South Karnataka, and she was
Okay.
used for begging on roads for 40 years and has really severe arthritis. So that's us doing
Oh,
laser therapy on her. And this is
okay.
so the thing is because of so unfortunately a lot of people still think that elephants in captivity lead decent lives, which is really misguided. The thing is that a
Not
lot
at
of them
all.
are overweight and fed all kinds of rubbish. A lot of the times, they get a lot of worms, they get a lot of diseases, and arthritis being a very common problem because they're on cement floors for their entire lives. Another thing that you see with captive elephants is this thing called stereotypic behavior, where they rock and they weave, and it's just a way for them to deal with the stress and the anxiety. And so when they rock, it causes a lot of imbalance on their feet, and over time that affects their nails and foot condition. They get foot rot. So dealing with captive elephants is extremely, uh, it's really sad because it's something that should be looked into, their welfare. and I think it's being debated in the Supreme Court right now. But then, even if elephants in temples were released, there's so many of them that I don't think the forest department could handle that. So a big thing is to make sure that elephants in captivity as well are kept with strict welfare conditions. So that's something that we're working towards now. You know, trying to implement welfare standards within temple elephants. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that's long pending and much needed at this point. But do you think at any point we might ever see a ban on domesticated elephants? I mean, do you think there's any
Um,
thought of that anywhere?
so I don't think so. The thing with captive elephants is now people can't buy elephants anymore. There is no um, there's no more transfer of wild elephants into domestic into captivity, except for the elephants in forest departments that are rescued or abandoned by mums and that sort of thing. But what we are seeing is that elephants that are in captivity don't breed. A lot of them just you know they just aren't able to conceive. Maybe it's stress. Maybe they're just aware that's a it's a horrible life for them, so they don't breed. And and a lot of them are also kept in isolation, so it's difficult for them to procreate. And so I don't think the number of captive elephants is slowly going down, and it's going to take some time because they're very long-lived animals. But hopefully, it'll be not very far away that there aren't more elephants in temples around the country.
So when you talk about elephants being in captivity, so
Mhm.
how are they introduced into captivity? Are they captured from forests in places that actually use a lot of or keep a lot of captive elephants? Because you said they don't really seem to breed much in captivity. So where is the start? How does it start?
So elephants have been traded for years and years before. Like a lot of them came in from the northeast and actually even from Burma and West Bengal, Assam. So a lot of them came in many years ago until about 10 years ago when they implemented strict policies on the trade and transfer of elephants. Someone here was asking about whether they're really made to carry weight. I don't think anyone is made to carry weight, especially an elephant. Elephants have a really weird curve on their spine, so you can't really put very much stuff on them, and they end up getting a lot of back issues because of that. So yeah, no, don't, they're not made to carry weight. And but then, unfortunately, if you look at temple festivals like Mysore, for example, where they still get elephants in to carry these massive 20-ton, pandals and thrones and things, I think it's extremely unethical. But it's something that hopefully will change when perceptions change, because until people realize that elephants aren't built for doing that, I don't think it's going to stop. You need public awareness and pressure for people to stop pushing for elephants in captivity doing unreasonable stuff. Um, but I can't. It
Wow.
so yeah, yeah.
So, as far as rules go, do we have any rules around, current captive elephants and how much weight they're allowed to carry or anything like that?
Not at the moment. I don't think there are any welfare standards in place. I think they have to have access to water and food and decent flooring and things, and regular veterinary care and vaccinations and things. But then beyond that, I don't think there are very many standards yet. So the idea is now we are documenting systems and creating those standards, and I hope at some point or the other it will be implemented across the board. But it's going to
Well,
take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, unfortunately.
well, that's the sad part, but the good part is we're glad to hear that there is something happening, and better late than never, I should think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hope that
So, Doctor,
people who are watching this realize and go out there and read up about this and and there are a couple of there are a couple of organizations that believe that elephants should be in temples and are treated really well, and stuff like that is really silly because a lot of these organizations are paid for by people who run the temples. So and there's a big lobby to keep elephants in captivity because they're a massive money earner for temples. I've heard of temples getting in 1 lakh a day just because of begging. And Unfortunately, begging is a big thing for captive elephants now, and they still take them out onto roads and go shop to shop collecting donations, and it's um, it's a really sad life for them. Yeah, and I have been working
Yeah, my
as a
heart can just
wildlife
go
vet
out to
for
them.
7
Yeah,
years.
there's a question from Mona Lisa. How
Yeah.
long have you been working as a wildlife
Uh,
vet? Yeah.
since 2013. Yeah, so 7 years now. Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. Yeah. So tell me, doctor, in all this time, are there any animals you particularly like to work with?
I really enjoy elephants. I'm very careful though around them, but I have a really bad knee because I got chucked by one once. That wasn't fun. and but Yeah, I like working with elephants the most. I think it's the best part of my job.
What is it
And
about working with them that excites you the most?
it's each one of them has their own personality, and they're really like all animals have their own personalities. But then uh, I find myself getting really attached to the elephants I treat. So and yeah, that's
Yeah, they're
probably it.
almost just like overgrown puppies, I should think.
Very very intelligent puppies, and
So,
and not puppies you want to play around too rough with. They get really, they can
yeah.
and
So, in
but we
general, while
also
working with big animals like these, sorry, you were saying
Mhm.
something.
No, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So, while working with the big animals like these, what are the precautions that you and your team normally take?
So a lot of us are wearing a lot of safety equipment. When I was working with wildlife, it was standard. We had shields and helmets and things, but then a lot of the times those shields and helmets and things are only to protect you against the public. When people are throwing rocks at you and empty glass bottles, that's what those are there for. But if you're really with wildlife, you don't need to really get out on foot when you're working with them. And the only times you do need to is when it's a really bad conflict situation, and then the protective gear is to protect you from the mob. Um, like I, we started putting in wearing helmets. I
Yeah.
started wearing helmets in Bandipur because we went in for a case with a tiger, and I had darted it once, and I had to dart it the second time because it
Mhm.
took some time to go to sleep. And when I was trying to dart it the second time, there were some drunken people who caught hold of the gun from behind, and they were trying to play around, trying to aim for me. And so I kind of leaned back and I hit them with the butt of the gun and then shot the tiger. And one of those guys who was extremely drunk picked up a bottle and broke it on my head. So I have like scars over there. But then,
Oh
so
my God.
then helmets became standard issue whenever we went in. And
And so all
Yeah,
of this is geared just to protect yourself from people, not from animals.
yeah, because when you work
Gosh.
with wildlife, it's you don't really need to get out of your vehicle. You just sit in your car and you look at them from a distance. If you need to do treatments for things, you dart them. You've got a tranquil like a dart gun. You sit in the car. You're sitting in your vehicle. You shoot them. They go to sleep. If they see you coming towards them, they run away. So you'd rather that not happen. So the idea is dart them from a distance so they don't even realize they've been hurt by they've been shot by you, and once they go to sleep, you can walk up to them and do your work, and then once you've done your work, you uncover their eyes and get out of there, and they wake up and they don't even know they've been treated. So it's that's how
Yeah.
it should be. ideally, but then that doesn't work a lot of the time.
Have you ever had a situation where you've darted an animal and then gotten up close with it only to realize that it's not entirely tranquilized?
Yeah, we have had one situation where we had so we were just gotten into a situation. I think there's, I don't know if the pictures here on this slideshow, but then there's, it's up on Instagram. But we went in and we were just standing around in a group trying to discuss who was role was what. And one of the people, one of the staff with a gun, with a dart gun, had a good shot, and so he said he thought he'd take it. He darted the tiger, and it was a really badly injured tiger. It looked like
Oh
it
gosh.
was dying, and we thought it couldn't move. And it was on one bank of a river, and there was a 30-foot river across between us, and we were standing on the embankment. And as soon as it was darted, the public behind us, there were several hundred people, started to scream. And because they screamed, the tiger got up and charged in some 3 steps, got across the river. And one of the people, one of the officers in RFO, who was standing right next to me, while he was trying to get up, he slipped down that slope, and the tiger grabbed him by the shoulder. And so
Oh my gosh.
there's a yeah, there's a very that was a really intense day. But then he managed, like, because the tiger had a really bad wound on its leg, we managed to whack it on the leg and let go of him for a second, and he managed to slime away and ran really fast across and came up around behind. But so then, in between, for a little while, because it was so traumatic, I started teaching first aid to the forest department and people around Mysore as well, because then no one knew how to do first aid then, and so I was the only one there who was doing stuff. So even in this case, I was like, I had my thumb in his wound trying to stop blood flow, the blood from pouring out,
Oh
and
gosh.
it's yeah, we've had some really crazy experiences there.
But
But
I'm a man. Yeah, I'm thinking he was a really lucky man that day. Right. So
yeah.
there's yeah. Sanjay Kumar says, "Hi Doc, I have coordinated with you in Carbon Park for dog rescues, and you are really great at treating dogs."
Oh, yeah.
So tell me, Shantanu, while you work so much with wildlife, do you still work with domestic animals and with small animals as well?
So I have now started up a small clinic. When when the COVID crisis hit, we were trying to figure out what to do to fund our work, because a lot of funding just dried up. So I set up this, and the thing is, with wildlife, you are traveling all the time. Um, I call myself a glorified driver, because that's what I do for 95% of the time. But I end up, so I was looking for an option to do things while I was traveling. So I set up this thing called Dial a Vet, and it adds on to all our other services. And so whenever people from anywhere in the country can call in and get veterinary advice whenever they need. We've now treated, I think, over 1,000 cases in the last 3 months. So it's yeah,
Oh,
it's
brilliant.
grown well.
And I think much needed, especially during the pandemic when, a lot of us couldn't really, reach any help.
Yep.
I'm talking about, the peak lockdown. I think it
Mhm.
really, really helped a great deal of people. Yeah.
Where
So,
well,
doctor, tell
most
us a
of our
little bit
people.
about your work with Reef Watch.
So, Reef Watch was, I've been with Reef Watch now for a couple of years. It's nearing 2 years now. And so, what we do is, this was something I thought about years and years ago, when I was in New Zealand. And because when I was there, I found that nothing was being done about stranded animals on the coast. You'd keep hearing about one case of a whale that washed up somewhere, and it stank, and that's about it. And there was no data anywhere available for them. And if you look at so there's an organization called marinemammals.in, run by researchers and by researchers across the country, and they collect data on stranded cetaceans, um, all around India. And if you look at historical data for Karnataka, there were some 40 strandings or 45 strandings from 1878 to 2019, and that was about it. And like that was all the collected data that was available between the forest department and papers available, and just uh, gathering information from people. But in the and very no information about dead sea turtles. But in the last 1.5 years, we've documented about 72, 73 cases, and a lot of sea turtles, but a lot of dolphins and small whales as well. We've had everything from pygmy sperm whales to Broodies whales and blue whale that had washed up very close to where we live in Kundapur, where we have a base in Kundapur. Uh, that was about 40 feet long. So it's quite
Oh my.
crazy. We do a lot of work with sea turtles too, and so the idea is to set up marine rehabilitation centers and treatment centers across the coast in all the districts, in all the coastal districts. We've got one now in Kundapur, but then we're working with the forest, and with this project, it's with the forest department completely. So whenever we get information about any stranding anywhere on the coast, I get a call. If it's alive, it comes. If it needs care and treatment, it comes to our center, or for if it needs extensive care. Otherwise, it goes to the forest department premises where they're treated, and either I go and treat them, or a vet does a teleconsult with me, and I tell them what has to be done. And if it's dead, we do the postmortems to find out what's wrong with them, what the causes of death are. Uh, and just recently we had four sea turtles that came into our center that we were treating for a month and a half almost, and one very large seabird. It was it was called a booby. So
Oh, okay. So, with your work in the marine field, is it only in Kundapur, or have you been working in at other parts of India? Is it only along the west coast or the east coast as
we
well?
are currently working only in Karnataka, but the idea is to set up a model that can be replicated everywhere. So the idea is to grow up and to grow and build on that. So we would like to cover the entire coast, but it's a slow process, so it's going to take time. Uh,
Oh yeah, like most things here.
yep.
So
But
tell me, when it comes to rescues with marine life, do you also have a lot of wildlife and marine life kind of getting stuck in fishing nets and things like that?
so I would say most of our cases come in because of entanglements um, in nets,
Okay.
and drowning is a large cause of death in a lot of marine animals. But we most of the cases that we get are animals that are entangled in discarded fishing lines, and when uh,
Mm.
if fishing nets get entangled on rocks, it's much easier to just dump it than it is to try and recover them. So the idea is now we're working with communities and another thing that actually causes a lot of these deaths are plastic and waste that's dumped into the sea. This picture was a baby dolphin that washed up. It was only I think less than a month old. If you look at near my hand, there's a little line on its body across it, and that's its fetal folds. Where they're rolled into a ball in the fetus, and so it's real. This one is really young.
Oh my. So it was a really, really young dolphin. Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
So
Yeah, where
unfortunately,
was this? Where was this picture taken?
this was very close to where our base is, somewhere near, just north of Gangoli, and
Okay.
we've had about, I think, 16 dolphins that have been killed and washed up, dead dolphins that have washed up in the last year and a half. I'd say. So yeah.
Wow. So, is there being
People,
any
I
work,
don't think
done on sensitizing people in these areas about, the use of plastics, discarding fishing nets, and actually removing them rather than leaving them in the water? Any kind of awareness, to kind of avoid these
yeah.
kind of encounters.
So what we do right now is we currently work with volunteer organizations across the coast. Like in Kundapur, we've tied up with an organization. It's a group of volunteers called the Clean Kundapur Project, and they get together every Sunday and do beach cleanups in sections of beaches. And uh, what what we've started doing is we are working with them to uh, earlier on, we were just gathering waste and putting it back into the municipal landfills. Now, the idea is we are looking for funding where we are setting up a small plastics and a marine waste segregation and processing center. So we are hiring women. So again, along the coast, a lot of people are now getting out of fishing because catches have declined significantly over the last 10 years or so. Industrial fishing has just taken its toll on all our fish stocks. It's the most unsustainable industry there is currently. But a lot of people just don't make any money from fishing anymore and are looking at alternatives. A lot of them are coming into cities and moving to cities, but then there is a very big resident population that's trying to figure out what to do. So we are looking at trying to monetize oceanic waste and things. So we're getting people to collect waste, process it, and then sell it for to produce other things. So we're tied up with in the process of tying up with a couple of companies that will be buying our waste from us, so that we gather. And to put it into perspective about the amount of waste that comes up in I think it was an 80-meter stretch of beach over 7 days of just collecting over 3 hours a day with a group of about 15 people on average, we collected 14 tons of waste.
Oh
Yeah.
my,
So,
that's that's really something. Wow, we have a
so
long way to go in terms of managing all of these things. Yeah.
yep.
So this is an interesting picture here with the sea turtle. So what exactly was happening here? What were you treating it for?
So this one had an injury on on its right flipper. It had um, a piece of rope that had entangled its fin, and we were just debriding it. We ended up having to amputate that leg of the turtle, and after
Oh
which we
gosh, that's
released it.
sad.
This
Okay.
was Olivia. She was with us for a month. She was there for the longest time, unfortunately. But she was released recently, and she swam off, and she was fine. So, and thankfully,
Oh,
she's
that's
not.
lovely. Lovely. And regardless of the amputation, yes. Yeah. So, do a lot of rescues have to be done with the sea turtles during the laying season, during the egg laying season?
So, the season of turtles is like they lay eggs anytime between just about after the monsoons to all the way to March and April. So it's a very large season. So unfortunately, what we're finding is that sea turtles used to historically nest all across Karnataka. But if you look at almost every beach in Karnataka today, most of them have rocks that have been put there as a very misguided attempt to stop erosion. So the thing is, because they put rocks there, turtles have just stopped nesting in those areas, and slowly, I think they're migrating to other sections of the coast. So now we're working with the forest department to set up sections of beach that are protected and won't be disturbed by people by human activity. Uh, and that's something that's going to be happening in the very near future, actually.
Oh, wow, that will be something to look forward to. But tell me, doctor, do we have a lot of challenges still with people trying to steal the eggs once laid? Because I do remember this was quite a challenge some years ago.
Mhm. So Karnataka is there are people who still eat turtle eggs in Karnataka, but they're very like small communities, and uh, a couple of tribal communities, which is completely normal. It's a very sustainable thing because there were enough turtles back in the day. What is really bad is when tourists come in and decide that they want to start eating turtle eggs and creating a market for it.
Oh
That's when it
gosh.
becomes unsustainable. So, yeah, please don't eat turtle eggs. Is the only message I can give out.
I know, message to everyone. Please spread this message. We need our turtles. Right. So,
But
doctor,
we
tell
have
me,
a
do
lot of
you also
turtles.
work with urban wildlife? Sorry?
No, I was saying we have
Yeah.
a really large
Right.
population of turtles currently on the coast of all around India. So, uh, like, I hope
Yeah.
it grows over time. But then another thing that we need to do is look at
Yeah.
sustainable fishing. So, and if you guys eat fish, I would suggest you look at where the fish are coming in from, and look for sustainable fish options. I can't remember the name though. There's an organization that does. It's called Know Your Fish. Sorry. So, and that talks about really sustainable fish that you can eat. So, what fish to eat at what time of the year, and don't eat bangda during the monsoon because that's their breeding season. Um, so it's something to look at, and just Google whenever you guys have the time.
Oh, that's very good information. Right. So tell me, doctor, do you work with the urban wildlife anymore, or have you worked with urban wildlife in the past, like, everything from reptiles to squirrels to monkeys and birds and things like that?
Yeah. So I work with. So when we had a clinic in Mysore, and back in the day when we were there for almost 5 years, we ended up getting a lot of wildlife because there were no wildlife rescue centers in the city. So people just showed up with squirrels and bags and owls and like everything from civet cats to baby leopards. So that the picture of the leopard in that slideshow was about yay big when it came in, and she was with us for a month and a half, and then we were transferred her to the zoo. Uh, this was while I was still in Bandipur, but then it came in when we were in Mysore. And this little squirrel is one of, I think we've had about 30 or 40 of them in the past that we just treat and rescue and release whenever they grow up. So yeah, we get a lot of
Yeah.
not very recently, but until a few months ago, we were getting urban wildlife all the time. And
Do you get any reptiles? Any
we
reptiles
do.
that need require treatment?
We get a lot of snakes that are run over and things, but then they most of the time they go to organizations like the Cupa Wildlife Center and PFA. This snake was a king cobra. So then something else I do on the side is I work with as a consultant with a number of organizations. Just a second, my dogs are going a little crazy barking. So yeah, sorry. So this was a king cobra from Agumbe that I did a surgery on. So with the King Cobra project, I get called in to do they to implant transmitters in them, and they do monitoring surveys of these King Cobras in the Western Ghats. So it's just a consultancy I work with ARRC, Agumbe Rainforest Research Center, and
Yes,
but
the one
that's
that's led by Rom Whitaker.
yes, that's the one. And
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
okay.
and if you guys can, please visit their zoo and their or donate to their cause because they need a lot of funding for their work, and they're doing some really good work there. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is a big female. I think it was a male called M1. This was one. Yeah, this was a 14-foot long king cobra. but
Wow. I've always wanted to rescue a king cobra, but never had the luck to, no matter how many trips to Agumbe.
I don't
Yeah.
think they need much
So have you
rescuing.
had any, sorry?
I don't think they need much rescuing. It's just leaving them alone as much as possible.
Yes,
Um,
that's the better thing to do. Yeah, but yes, I know rescuers over there do still get a lot of calls.
mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, have you had any instance that, kind of stand out with your work with the reptiles? And yes, this is a selfish question considering I'm, very, very crazy about reptiles myself.
Well, I have most of my work is with either king cobras or Russell's vipers. So with another a friend of ours who runs a project in Hunsur, and he works with the Russell's viper telemetry project. So I do their work too. And
Yeah, that would
in
be Jerry
one,
Martin.
yep. And so in one of his, like, I think I have a picture up on, I don't know if it's in the slideshow, but of Jerry doing mouth to mouth resuscitation on one of them because it wasn't waking up and wasn't breathing fast enough. So yeah, I don't do that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But yeah,
Right.
yeah, but that's Jerry
Okay.
for you.
So I think we're down to the last 4 minutes. So we'll take any questions if anyone has. And in the meantime, doctor, I mean, is there any key message you have, especially around conservation, that you would like to put across to the audience here?
Um, yeah, I would say just live as sustainably as you can. And if you do want to work with wildlife and things and you want to volunteer, you can always get in touch. We are looking at doing volunteer programs on the coast. Very soon, we'll reopen doing volunteer programs. But it's going to be, yeah, it's just about getting involved and helping out where you can. I think one of the biggest problems we have today is funding. So if you know people who are ready to donate, please spread the word and get people to put in, get funding across to wildlife projects across the country. But somebody asked something.
Right. So we have a question from Saloni here. What was your most difficult wildlife rescue?
Um, I would say the working with baby elephants would be the most difficult thing to do. So not like after that, there was with that picture there was another elephant that came in, and it because we had nowhere to put it. It wasn't accepted by the camp elephants in the department, so it stayed with me for a month. And yeah, having a baby elephant in your room is not easy. Initially, I tried sleeping on the ground with it, and it would climb up on me and crush me. So then I slept on the bed. Then I tried climbing on the bed, and it fell down a couple of times. So then that didn't work out. So then I ended up having to sleep on my desk with my legs dangling down, so it could touch my feet all the time, just so that it was in constant contact. Because elephant
Oh
babies
my
really
gosh.
need, they're always looking for attention and contact, and which they get from their mums, but it is not easy to take care of them. Yep.
Not easy to play mom to an elephant. I can imagine. Oh, wow.
And yeah, but
I think your work probably just gets more interesting every day. I don't think you ever have a boring day, do you?
no, it's yep. Yeah, I'm not ever watching Dumbo. It's too depressing, unfortunately. The whole captive elephant thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know.
And yeah,
So sad.
and if you're looking at elephant stuff, we're working with a local artist who does watercolors of elephants in the back. And so we're looking to sell them to raise money for captive elephant treatments across. So if anyone wants to buy um, portraits of elephants, please pass the word.
Yeah, is this Mr. Prasad who is the artist?
No, this is a local artist from Mysore called Vinod, and we're
Okay.
trying to promote his work, and so yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's beautiful. Right then. So I think we're at the end of the hour, and
Mhm.
yeah, since we don't see any more questions, I think it's been a brilliant session connecting with you, Doctor,
Mhm.
and hope
Sure.
to connect with you more in person in the future.
Sure.
Right.
Yep, and yeah, if anyone
So
ever has
thank
any more questions, do get in touch with us. We have like you can always look me up on Instagram or message me on Instagram at the Wildlife Vet, the underscore wildlife underscore vet, and yeah, I'm happy to answer things. If I don't get back to you immediately, sorry, it's because when either I'm driving or I'm with a case, but then I will get back to you if you message. So yeah. And another thing is, if you guys do need veterinary care and advice or anything, you're welcome to contact us on the Dial-A-Vet number. Just if you Google the woofwagon.com, and the number and all the details are there. So, oh, and yeah, and profits from the
Right then.
Dial-A-Vet
So thank you so
towards
much,
wildlife.
doctor.
Hmm.
All right.
No, I thank you. It was fun, and yeah, we should do this again sometime.
Sure then. Thank Absolutely. Yes. So thanks everyone for joining and hope to see you all again.
Awesome.
Right then. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.